Today I'm in the small town of Sharon Springs, which is in upstate New York. It's a town, it's a region that has fallen on hard times in the last 10 or 15 years, but many of the towns are making a comeback, and one of the ways Sharon Springs is with the success of the Black Cat Cafe. So today, what we're hoping to do is get an idea of what's going on and what makes it so special. So the whole gig is, this is the opening part where you're just going to tell me like how you got started, like from teenagehood to whatever, what led you to today.
Okay.
But not everything.
Not everything. The best thing about having the cafe is that you have to get really good at telling your entire life story in about 5 minutes.
Oh, well then roll with it. Why don't you tell me how you did get started?
I can give you the 5-minute version of my life. I grew up in Connecticut, and when I was in Kenya, I lived first with an Indian family, then an African family. I became really interested in different cultures and different people when I was there. And so when I came back, I wanted to do international relations and travel and do different cultures and stuff like that. My parents bought a country inn with 17 rooms and a 3-star restaurant. And then one summer we needed somebody in the pantry, so I actually got to work in the kitchen. Then I left home and I went to Barnard, and that was where I met Tony. So I would cook. The whole day cooking these elaborate meals and 2 different desserts, and I would make ossobuco, and I sort of worked my way all the way through Craig Claiborne. I just sort of started realizing that I really liked the cooking part. And I dropped out of school, and Tony was 8 years older, and he, was worldly, and here I was like 19 years old, and he was making money, and I was like, hey, this is great, this is fun, let's do this, let's get an apartment. I really liked the cooking part, and I liked the baking part. And then we went to Lebanon in 93. We were living on an organic farm. We had 2 kids to start, and then we had another one. They drive on the wrong side of the road, and so I was trapped in this house on this farm with these little kids, with the cookbooks that I brought over with me, and no television, no nothing. And it became a lot of fun, just sort of figuring out what to do with food and having to make everything. And I think that the best way that you can learn how to cook something is just be completely, drowned in it and have to sort of, climb your way out. And then when we came back to the States, I figured that I needed to get a real job. I figured that, this cooking was fun, but it was not serious. So I went back to nursing school. And I got a nursing degree. And then we moved to upstate New York, and I worked as a nurse for 6 months, and I hated it. So we opened the cafe. So for 1 loaf of white bread, it's about 3½ cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, and my yeast. 1/4 teaspoon of dry yeast. And it's a wet dough. If it's going to give me a hard time, I'm just going to add a little bit more water. You want to make sure you don't leave any pockets of flour underneath it. Just run it around a couple of times. And of all the doughs, this is the one that's really sort of different because it's much pastier. And that's it. And what you're doing now is it's very wet and it's sort of just growing slowly. You're giving it the water and you're giving it the food and you're leaving it alone. And you're giving it 18 hours as opposed to probably if you made a loaf of white bread at home, it'd probably be 2 hours for the first rise, and then you'd shape it and you'd give it 1 more hour. Now I'm going to forget about it for about 18 hours. And it can really go up to 24 hours as long as it's not in any place that's too warm.
So you can leave it at room temperature?
Room temperature, yep. We need to get our bread pots really hot before we put our bread in. So I'm going to turn up the oven to 500. And we're going to put the pots in and let them start warming up. And any enamel or cast iron pot will work as long as it has a cover. All right, our oven is almost at 500, so they're ready to go in. All right, here we go.
Tell me again why these have to be so hot to put the bread in.
If you were making bread in a bread oven, your oven would be hot. You would be putting it on hot stones, and we're trying to reproduce the hot stone. So the heat is going to give it a nice crust and a nice fast rise. I try to do the ones that I use for sandwiches in the oval pots. It makes easier slicing. And most of these are about a 3.5 quart pot. Some of them are a little bit bigger. And this is the new one. This is the fig one that I haven't done before. We'll see how that turns out. All right, and then we want to get the pots on and then back in the oven as quickly as we can. Now we're going to leave it alone for 25 minutes. So that's bread. Isn't that exciting?
Is there a key ingredient to like the success of this place? Is it that it's kind of simple, healthy food? Is it
simple, healthy
location,
food,
or?
and to try to be flexible. I mean, it's a small place and a small community. We wanted to have sort of a gathering place, and nothing fancy, just good, simple food and, you know, baked stuff. Originally, I wanted more to open a bakery, and the food stuff came later. It really started out being like Vanessa playing in the kitchen and making lots of things and having fun, to turning it into a business and being organized and having a staff and having to schedule them and, you know, having to do orders. We really try to cater to our customers.